Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Sergio Fabris. I have been working at Raiz for over 20 years. And I want to present you our work about sustainable forest management regarding to long-term soil productivity capacity based on nutrient geochemical budget as a function of different scenarios of biomass removal in eucalyptus plantation. As we know, the expansion of bioenergy and other forest-based products has demanded a high supply of biomass from forestry plantations, and removals of forest biomass will be probably higher over the coming decades. As a consequence, highest uptake rates and exportation of nutrients via biomass extraction can lead to soil nutrient depletion. One way to evaluate soil quality is by nutrient budget. Talk a little bit about the plant nutrition. We know that plants absorb hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon from air and water. The other nutrients are absorbed by plant roots directly from the soil. Nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium are absorbed in great quantities. That's why they are called the macronutrients. And the others, the third group, are called the micronutrients because they are absorbed in much smaller amounts. We can find several other elements in the plants once the plants do not have absolute selectivity for nutrient uptake, for elements uptake. Soil fertility must be addressed always in both terms, in short term and in medium and long term. Here we can see biomass, a curve of biomass, above ground biomass production and nutrient allocation, and above ground components. By above ground components, we have different components of biomass: leaves, branch, bark, and wood, and the accumulation of biomass as a function of growth rate. Here we can see the distribution between above ground biomass and radicular biomass. And below we can see the rate, the amount of nutrient accumulated in the biomass. Naturally, also as a function of the growth rate. Thus, in order to design and suitable nutritional management plan, it is necessary, on the one hand, to know the nutritional needs for each species, and on the other hand, to know the soil fertility. In this sense, Raiz Institute has developed a tool that allows making a fertilization recommendation in a customized way. work present a case study on the sustainability of eucalyptus forest, eucalyptus forest plantations, on the long-term management, on the successive harvest cycle, considering different scenarios of biomass extraction. As mentioned, in this work, we used the nutrient-based approach in order to evaluate the effect on long-term soil nutrient supply. The concepts, approaches, and methodologies used here were based or modified from works available in the specialized literature, like these ones, for instance. The budget, the nutrient budget, was calculated as the difference between nutrient removal per rotation and the ecosystem inputs for each nutrient, for each macronutrient considered: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. After that, if the value found is negative, if this difference is negative, we can compare it with the labile pool of nutrients in the soil, and thus calculate the number of supportable rotation in the future, considering 12 years eucalyptus rotation. We have to consider some assumptions. To build the nutrient budgets, we had to adopt some assumptions based on the best available knowledge. In works like this, of this nature, some data depend on long-term studies and several measurements, field measures, for example, and sometimes are difficult to obtain. For this study, we selected the eucalyptus stand existing in different site conditions nearby a very mill of a navigator company, and where we had accumulated knowledge from previous studies, and also have a relevant database in terms of forestry, inventory, and soil characterization. These eucalyptus stands are distributed in an area inside the radius of 50 kilometers of a very mill of navigator. Nutrient budgets were then calculated under 3 scenarios of harvesting intensity, 3 geological parent material, 3 rates of forest growth, as we can see it. The area was characterized, and as a result, we can see that the 76% of the area studied, about 500,000 hectares, has a mean annual volume increment of 15 cubic meters per hectare per year. And almost 50% of the area has soils developed from schist bedrocks. One third of the area have soils from sediments, and 20% from granite granite bedrocks. Yet, the area encompasses approximately 160,000 hectares of eucalyptus. In terms of above-ground biomass accumulation, the results show that, on average, the allocation of eucalyptus biomass above-ground distribution is 72% of wood, 9% of bark, 12% of branch, and 7% of leaves in dry weight. 50% of the nitrogen is found in the leaves, 6% of the phosphorus and potassium are evenly distributed in the wood and leaves, and while 40% of calcium and magnesium are stored in the bark. Management options based on eucalyptus nutrient requirements and knowledge promote the sustainability of forest ecosystem and allowance and increment in productivity of the plantation. The nutrient budget were negative for nitrogen and calcium for some site conditions and only under the most harvesting intensive scenario, quality removal, as we can see here for nitrogen, and we can see here for some condition for calcium. As we said, when always the budget are negative, it is possible to calculate the number of supportable rotation, comparing it negative values with the soil nutrient labile pool, or if you want, the net nutrient stock in the soil. We can see here, for example, that this methodology permitted us to know that the stock of nitrogen in the soil allow us to producing between 6 rotations at least and 12 rotations, considering the stock of nitrogen in soil, the labile stock, the nitrogen in soil. We can conclude saying that the nitrogen budget was imbalanced for only the most intensive harvesting scenario. Organic matter is very important in this process. It is necessary to implement the silviculture practices to maintain, or if possible, to increase the soil organic matter. Phosphorus, potassium, magnesium budgets did not show the net depletion. Calcium budget has shown some depletion for both wood and bark removal and water removal scenarios. Harvesting bark or woolly tree in some of these conditions require compensatory measures such as liming and fertilization as a way to mitigate or reverse nutrient depletion. In order, the most important, in order to confirm and better understand these assumptions related to the long-term mineral reserve of the soil, it will be necessary to deepen some studies, mainly those related to soil mineralogy, composition, and weathering rates of primary minerals present in these bedrocks. Thank you, sorry. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrea and I'm here to present my first results of my PhD in Center for Ecology, Evolution and Environmental Changes in collaboration with RAIZ. With this work, we pretend to study the role of forest management and fire seasonality on Eucalyptus globulus expansion. As you know, Eucalyptus globulus was introduced in Portugal in the 19th century and nowadays occupies about 1/4 of our forest area. Most globulus stands have been planted intentionally and are managed for pulpwood production in rotation cycles of 10 to 12 years, which allows a periodic control of the understory vegetation. This strategy has a negative impact in biodiversity, however reduces the fire hazard and also limits natural regeneration of these species. On the other hand, some plantations are left uncut with no control of the understory vegetation, which increases fire risk. This lack of management leads to a high propagule pressure, making possible the dispersal of E. globulus to adjacent areas. Also, we have present in our landscape isolated E. globulus trees, here called C-trees, that are left uncut for many years and usually limits different properties. These C-trees are often large and with high canopies with great reproductive capacity that could behave as a potential seed source. Beside this large area occupied by an exotic species, Portugal has another common perturbation, which is the occurrence of forest fires. We all know that frequency of fires and burnt area have been increasing, and Portugal has the largest percentage of burnt forest area in Europe. Also, under a climate change scenario, frequency and intensity of wildfires could change, leading to a different fire seasons, as we all remember the catastrophic fires that occurred in 2017. Once E. globulus is native from Australia, it is a species highly adapted to fire, and fire events are a critical factor to its regeneration, promoting both dormant bud sprouting and seedling recruitment, but seasonal differences have not been studied yet. Higher fire risk and a longer fire season raise concerns about more extensive naturalization events and an increase in potential invasive behaviors. With that in mind, we aim to assess the effects of out-of-season fire events and the compounding impact of pre-forest management, along with the presence of C-trees on E. globulus recruitment. To do this, we assess the establishment of saplings outside plantations and in the surrounding areas of C-trees in the absence of fire and after June and October 2017 fire events. Also, we analyze the role of management actions to ultimately mitigate the potential invasive behavior of Eucalyptus globulus. Our study sites were selected in areas affected by the fire events of 2017, namely June, early in the official fire season, and October, late in the season, mainly because this was a particularly dry and warm year. We assessed burned plantations and C-trees, managed and unmanaged, in each site, and unburned plantations and C-trees close to the areas affected by the fires. The field sampling was done about 1 year after fires through a spatial gradient of distance transects. Each transect was divided in 3 by 3 meters plots, where the first plot was established at 0 or 3 meters outside the plantation, and then plots were sampled alternately and cover of E. globulus samplings were assessed. Transect sampling finished when 2 consecutive plots had no E. globulus saplings, marking the limit of expansion. Within the plantation, 3 alternate plots were always sampled. This methodology was adapted to surrounding areas of C-trees. Each plantation was classified as managed if trunks per tree were less or equal to 3 and if large trunks of burned shrubs or trees were not observed or as unmanaged. In the case of C3s, management type was classified at transect level, mostly due to location near to roads and different adjacent habitats in each transect. So our results show that all factors are significantly increasing the distance reached by globulus saplings. As shown by other studies, we observed a higher sapling cover inside plantations and near C3 surrounding areas, and it decreases with increasing distance to both plantation edge or C3. After the October fire, saplings were found at greater distance, 45 meters away from the plantation edge, while after the June fire, saplings reached 15 meters, indicating that October fire potentiates recruitment. As expected, sapling cover resulting from C3s reached higher distance after both fires, with a maximum distance of 75 meters, mainly due to its height. It is important to mention that cover values near plantation edge are similar to what we found near to one single C3. Also, saplings were observed to a maximum distance of 99 meters away from C3s and 69 meters from unmanaged plantation edge after the October fire, but at very low frequencies, with only one sapling observed in each case. Once we found that greater sapling cover was in the first 15 meters, we performed our analysis taking this in consideration and using also no-fire data. Again, all the study variables, type, fire date and management have an effect in globulus sapling establishment. So, in the absence of fire, we observed that natural regeneration was very low, mainly due to interspecific competition allowing shadow and also litter accumulation that prevents seeds to germinate. Also, after fire, natural regeneration is potentiated, but our results show that after October fire, recruitment is higher mostly due to the more favorable conditions resulting from the rainy season that occurs immediately after fire. However, our results highlight for pre-fire management actions. Once under managed conditions, we observed lower saplings cover compared with unmanaged conditions. This could be due to the already mentioned rotation cycles that reduce seed accumulation in the canopy. In almost all studied conditions, C3s presented high sapling cover, being considered as a key propagule source ascribed to its age that result in higher seed production. Despite this, after June fire, sprouting from C3s up in the canopy may provide moderate shade that decrease high soil temperature, creating more favorable conditions that facilitate seedling recruitment and survival, contributing to the higher sapling cover observed. Furthermore, the absence of management led to a capsule accumulation on the soil. We hypothesize that during a fire, only the capsules located in upper soil layer burn, while the ones of the lower layers remain intact, protecting seeds from the heat damage, which may enable later germination. This can explain the higher sapling cover after the October fire. However, the worst-case scenario was observed in unmanaged plantations affected by the October fire with the highest sapling cover. This could be due to a greater seed production associated with more and old trees. So, we can conclude for our study area that Eucalyptus globulus dispersal is highly dependent of fire events. Under all conditions, forestry management restrains globulus dispersal. The highest sapling cover was found in unmanaged plantations burned in October fire 2017. And C3s are critical for Eucalyptus globulus dispersal and needs to be considered in these species management plans. By increasing our knowledge about globulus expansion risks, we will contribute to improve best practices in plantation management of these species in Portugal. And thank you so much for your attention.
Hello, my name is António Cruz de Oliveira and I'm here to present you our work entitled Efficient Establishment of Eucalyptus Stands, Preliminary Results. This was a joint work developed in partnership with Eduardo Mendes, Pedro Ventura, Rosinda Pato, Daniela Ferreira, Fernando Casal e Filomena Gomes. So, let's start. Introduction. Forest is the main land use in Portugal, occupying more than one-third of area. The dominant species is the southern blue gum Eucalyptus globulus, followed by cork oak and maritime pine. Southern blue gum plays an important role in the Portuguese economy. The edapho-climatic elasticity presented by eucalyptus, its rapid growth, the possibility of driving in copies, and the existence of an identified and structured market are the main reasons for its preference for national forest owners. But, as for any forest or agricultural species, its cultivation must be guided by sustainable practice adjusted to different environments. One of the common problems in the management of eucalyptus, especially in the small holdings, is indiscriminated use of soil preparation techniques for installation. The GoEP project, Efficient Installation of Eucalyptus Stands Operational Group project, was created to provide a decision support tool that helps the forest owners during the installation phase of their eucalyptus stands, promoting the use of the efficient and sustainable forest techniques. This project that interacts symbiotically with the Globals project will be presented soon. In the context of the project, some tests were installed to monitor the development of plants according to different soil preparation techniques. The aim was to evaluate the effect of different land preparation systems on the eucalyptus installation. 3 tests were installed in the Cantanhede region, 10 to 20 km away from Coimbra. In these tests, the usual treatment in large states, designated as operational, was compared with alternative treatments characterized by their efficiency and viability in small states, designated as tests. Depending on the size of the properties, the test had a total of 75 to 161 plants, including border plants. Methods: trial treatments. At the trial number 1, called Forjaco, we had an antique pottle soil and 2 treatments were installed, each one with 3 planting lines. The planting date was April 9, 2018. In the operational treatment, we had a excavator with a stamp removal blade to destroy the stamps, then a dozer with a heavy disc arrow, and then a dozer with a ripper, in this case one-tooth ripper. At the test we had a excavator with a stamp removal blade and a excavator with a ripper, in this case 3-teeth ripper. In the trial number 2, called Andorinha, we had a Eutrica aerosol soil and 2 treatments were installed, each one with 3 lines. The planting date was April 10, 2018. At the operational treatment was used a excavator with a stamp removal blade, a dozer with a heavy disc arrow, and a dozer with a ripper, in this case one-tooth ripper. At the test was used a excavator with a stamp removal blade to destroy the stamps and the same excavator with the same stamp removal blade to dig between the stamps. At the trial number 3, Ansam, we had an endoleptic Regosol and 2 treatments were installed, each one with 3 lines. The planting date was April 12, 2018. At the operational treatment was used an excavator with a stamp removal blade, a dozer with a heavy disc arrow, and finally a dozer with a ripper, one-tooth ripper. At the test was used an excavator with a stamp removal blade and excavator with ripper, 3-teeth ripper. Results. Trial number 1, Forjap, survival rate. At T1, there was a slightly higher survival rate in the operational trial compared to the test. However, this difference is slightly diluted for the second evaluation moment, T2. Also observing globally a greater difference between the evaluation moments, T1 T2, than between the treatment tested. The analysis of variance showed that there was no significant difference on the survival rate due to the main factor of the soil treatment preparation. Height increase. The average height increase observed between periods was 0.57 meters. The height increase observed on this period of time showed the existence of significant difference between treatments. The results indicate that the average values of height increase were higher in the operational. Trial number 2, Andorinha, survival rate. In the first moment of evaluation, there was a slightly higher survival rate in the test treatment compared to the operational one. However, this difference is diluted for the second evaluation moment T2 after replant. Height increase. The total average height increase observed between periods was 0.71 meters, but there was a considerable difference between treatments, with the operational registering growth of 0.42 meters higher than the test. Trial number 3, ANSEM, survival rate. In the first moment of evaluation, there was a slightly higher survival rate in the operational treatment compared to the test. This difference was quite similar in the second evaluation moment, T2. Height increase. The height increase observed in the period of analysis shows the existence of slight difference between the treatments. This showed a total average of height increase of 0.76 meters between the two periods. The operational treatment showed a height increase of 0.09 meters higher than the test. Overall, no significant difference in survival were observed depending on the location, treatment, and their respective interaction. The significant difference in the height increase due to the interaction between the site and the treatment are shown in this graph. Multiple regression with a high correlation coefficient R equals 0.98 shows that variable height increase presents significant differences. With the height at significant level of P less 0.01, according to the variables location, treatment, and extractable potassium, the latter with a negative coefficient. With a significant level of P less 0.01 due to the magnesium and the magnesium-potassium ratio with positive and negative coefficients respectively. With inferior significant level of P less 0.05 due to the variables organic matter and calcium with positive and negative coefficients respectively. The data show the effect, absolute value, and coefficient in respective sign on the height increase due to the following variables. The location contributes more significantly than the treatment, but both are very significant. The content of organic matter and magnesium contribute in a direct reason for the height increase. Extractable potassium and calcium and magnesium-potassium ratio contribute inversely for the increase in height. These values suggest an unbalanced relationship between nutrients, which make it difficult to absorb another nutrient such as magnesium, which becomes a limiting factor for plant growth. It is recalled that magnesium is a fundamental nutrient for photosynthesis. The PCA, Principal Component Analysis, explains a total of observed variance of 85.5% through factors 1 to 3, with 44.6%, 24.9%, and 16% respectively. The data show the height increase is dependent of the location and it is positively correlated with the soil organic matter content, with the extractable potassium and iron, the latter probably associated with greater soil absorption. On the other hand, the height increase proved to be negatively correlated with the content of fine soil. This fact shows that the lower content of fine soil in a slightly textured soil is associated with a higher percentage of coarse elements and a lower content of clay, which means a lower water and nutrients holding capacity and consequently an inferior plant growth. This fact seems to have been evident in the test mode area in the trial number 1, Forjaco, compared to the operational area. Factor 2 shows the relationship between soil calcium and magnesium values. Finally, factor 3, with a coefficient considered almost at the limit, b equals 0.68, and just below the limit, b equals 0.53, shows the relationship among the tested treatments, survival and height increase, b equals 0.53, explains 16% of the total observed variance. So, the results show that there were no significant difference in the survival rate between treatments tested, operational and test, in the 3 trials installed. Moreover, the survival rate showed no significant difference due to the location, treatment tested and its interaction. The results suggest that the treatments tested did not show significant difference when compared to the operational mobilization treatments concerning the survival rate parameters. The best average values in height increase were observed in Ansan, 0.76 meters, very similar to those observed in Andorinha, 0.71 meters, and the lowest average values of height increase were observed in Forjaco, 0.57 meters, probably also related with the attack of Botrytis fungi. Regarding the average of height increase, higher average values were observed when the operational treatment was used compared to the test modalities. However, it should be noted that this is the first observation of height increase. More observations will be necessary up to a minimum of 3 years of age in order to have a better information on the expected behavior of the plants at the cutting age, according to the correlation between the juvenile and the adult age of this species when located in areas of Atlantic climate, as it is this case of study. Conclusions. The best results of height increase were obtained in the operational treatment. The survival rate was not dependent on the location or treatment. Height increase was dependent on location, treatment, and respective interaction. Height increase is also dependent on organic matter, soil texture, coarse elements, magnesium, and potassium. The first observation was made, however, more observations will be necessary to estimate the behavior of the plant at the cutting age. Acknowledge to the entire GOIEP project team, and of course also to the eGlobals project team. Before finishing, I would like to say that the project website will be available at this address. I remind you that the website will be finished soon, so I invite you to visit it. Thank you so much.
Ora, muito boa tarde a todos. Quem nos está a seguir em direto. Gostava de agradecer as vossas apresentações e... Ups.
Luís, não te ouvimos.
Agora estão a ouvir alguma coisa? Não? Estão a ouvir alguma coisa agora? Agora penso que sim, não? Tá?
Agora sim.
Ok, obrigadíssimo. Obrigado. Eu estava a agradecer as vossas apresentações, que foram claras, e peço só desculpa ao Sérgio, porque eu estive sem a apresentação dele durante praticamente toda a apresentação. Portanto, tentei ouvir e interagir com os técnicos para poder ter sombras, portanto vou ter aqui assim um déficit relativamente de questões relativamente ao Sérgio. Temos perguntas da audiência que neste momento não temos nenhuma, mas não é grave. E eu ia tentar, de uma forma ou de outra, aproveitar um pouco este tempo. Como digo, relativamente ao Sérgio, tinha aqui, eu apenas tive acesso aos abstracts e tinha aqui, relativamente ao Sérgio, uma pergunta que não percebi relativamente ao abstract e provavelmente, Sérgio, explicaste na apresentação e eu peço desculpa estar a dizer como é que calcularam, na questão do balanço que apresentaste, como é que calcularam os diferentes níveis de intensidade relativamente às diferentes esportividades. Portanto, quando percebi, foi um cálculo simulado e, mais uma vez, peço desculpa porque não tive acesso, de facto, à apresentação. Pensar que níveis de desbaste, de intensidade de desbaste é que foram calculados, de utilização dos resíduos é que foram calculados, face exatamente às diferentes esportividades que tu colocavas. Quanto a Andrei, faço uma ronda aos três, até aparecer alguma pergunta aqui também no chat. Relativamente à Andreia, uma das questões que achei interessante e que tem a ver um pouco com a experiência foi o facto do aparecimento de vegetação natural após o fogo de outubro. Naturalmente que a questão da umidade é fundamental, mas ia fazer uma pergunta, e também, naturalmente, a presença de mais cápsulas e mais semente, naturalmente que aumenta para uma mesma probabilidade de germinação, maior existência de maior número de sementes aumenta a probabilidade de plantas pequenas. E é apenas fazer uma pergunta se vocês verificaram isso ou não, e é provável que não tenham verificado, que é a questão dos provamentos em que o trabalho foi feito, qual foi a época de floração, ou seja, se sabem ou se têm alguma ideia se a floração no fogo de junho poderia ter ou não ter sementes viáveis. Estou a dizer isto porque, do facto da minha experiência profissional aqui, relativamente à produção de semente, nós hoje temos variedades de eucalipto que começam a florir em setembro, o que significa que quando chegamos a mais junho temos flores maduras e frutos maduros, e temos outras que continuam a florir até maio, junho. Portanto, temos praticamente um ano quase de produção contínua de flor, o que significa que estas últimas, um povoamento, uma origem de povoamento que tenha uma floração tardia, naturalmente que no fogo de junho a capacidade dela tem produzir sementes viáveis é nula. Acredito que vocês não tenham visto, porque foram verificar povoamentos pós-fogo, mas de qualquer maneira era um alerta que eu gostava de pôr aqui assim, que seria talvez um dado interessante, era realmente esses locais de observação a tentar avaliar isso. Naturalmente que as condições de umidade são fundamentais para a germinação das plantas e para a sua sobrevivência, mas de qualquer maneira o número de sementes viáveis também é crítico e nos nossos dados observamos variações tão grandes como 30 sementes viáveis por fruto para 100 sementes viáveis por fruto. Isso faz uma grande diferença. Só algumas considerações sobre isso. Relativamente ao António, gostei também da apresentação que fizeste. Gostava de colocar aqui três questões. Uma, em que medida é que na evolução próxima, e eu compreendo perfeitamente que são resultados provisórios ao fim de alguns poucos meses, não é? O desenvolvimento dos povoamentos é que vai determinar agora, a evolução e o impacto melhor das diferentes expansões de terreno. Em que medida é que ter 3 filas de árvores não vai criar aqui, assim, uns efeitos de cross-border, não é? De passagem de aproveitamento de uma zona mais mobilizada pelas outras plantas que estão numa zona menos mobilizada. Como é que pensas nesse aspecto? Como é que isso poderá acontecer? Eu também, da minha experiência, diria que a questão da água é fundamental para estes aspectos e, portanto, ter na preparação de terreno de teste em que há uma mobilização menos forte e não há tanta destruição de vegetação espontânea, tanto quanto pareceu, pode haver um efeito de competição que depois venha a ser superado para a frente. Gostava de perguntar-te apenas qual era a tua sensibilidade, uma vez conhecendo as zonas e conhecendo qual é a expectativa, o que é que tu antevês que possa acontecer relativamente à evolução dos povoamentos. Peço desculpa de não ter estendido um pouco, mas se quisessem refletir um pouco sobre isto. Sérgio, peço desculpa de não ter sido tão preciso quanto ao que eu gostaria, mas é o que eu consigo fazer nesta fase.
Beleza, depois eu posso enviar depois a apresentação. O que nós fizemos, como foi um estudo feito para Aveiro, Então, num raio de 50 quilômetros da fábrica, a Navigator, em Aveiro, nós fomos buscar os dados de inventário. Então, nós temos 608 parcelas de inventário e 208 delas com caracterização da fertilidade. Com base em outros estudos, nós quantificamos, temos feito isso já há algum tempo, a gente quantifica com base em abates, quantifica quanto é que sai de nutriente e de biomassa nas folhas, raízes, casca. Então, com base nesses outros estudos, a gente fez uma estimativa, é verdade. E para saber quanto de biomassa que é removido, nós fizemos há uns anos um trabalho específico quando fizemos a recolha de biomassa em bancos, em fardamentos. E aí quantificamos que via fardamento, nós fazíamos uma recolha do sobrante do corte. O mais intensivo que a gente conseguia fazer era retirar 60%.
60%.
Então, quando eu refiro esse cenário mais intensivo, chamei de whole removal, na verdade, foi a remoção da madeira, da casca e de 60% dos sobrantes, da copa, digamos assim. Depois, fizemos, então, nessa 608 a amostra, fizemos um agrupamento de níveis de produtividade, aqueles níveis que nós referimos, que foram 7, 12 e 15, porque é o que havia. Lembrando que nessa área aqui, o Baixo Voga, nós fizemos um estudo relativamente intensivo recentemente, mesmo em termos de inventário, para áreas geridas, com áreas não geridas. Portanto, a gente agrupou em 7, 12 e 15, com base nesse estudo. E depois, então, agrupamos também por solos dentro de cada classe de litologia, xisto, granitos e sedimentos diversos. Fizemos, na verdade, uma combinação fatorial entre litologia, pegamos, por exemplo, todos os solos, todas as parcelas que caíam dentro da litologia xisto, agrupamos. E assim por diante, para granito e sedimentos. Depois, dentro de cada grupo, de cada cluster desse, vimos as áreas que estavam com 7, 12 e 15 metros cúbicos. E fizemos a estimativa da saída. E depois, calculamos com base no nosso histórico de fertilidade, e especificamente com base nessas 208 parcelas em que foi caracterizado o solo, quantificamos o pool de nutrientes lábio, a diferença, então, chamamos de que foi o balanço de nutrientes, ou nutriente baixa. Depois, sempre que o resultado era negativo, nós comparamos com o pool lábio do solo, para ver, então, comparamos entre o que colocávamos e o que saía. E depois, como uma medida da sustentabilidade no longo prazo de cada local, comparamos com esse pool lábio, com o pool mineral, mais o pool orgânico. Foi basicamente isso, eu não sei se clarifiquei. E o que precisa de mais estudos? O que é relativamente frágil? É que uma componente importante das entradas de nutrientes são a quantidade de nutriente que é reposta ao sistema, à medida que a planta absorve, essa taxa de renovação, com base na meteorização dos minerais de cada rocha, foram dados que nós usamos na literatura, ou seja, a gente não mediu isso, porque é muito difícil de medir. Então, com base em vários estudos que nós temos e com base em algumas referências na literatura, nós calculamos essa taxa, poderíamos chamar assim, essa taxa de reposição ou de renovação da fração lábia. E com isso, somamos a isso a fertilização e as entradas via atmosfera, via chuva e entrada de sol. Quer dizer, somando tudo isso, então, nós temos o que nós chamamos de quantidade de nutrientes, que chamamos de menos a saída, calculamos o balanço. É um trabalho que a gente precisa ainda refinar, como eu disse nas conclusões, e fizemos as quantificações, nós já fizemos, temos bastante dados. O ponto que nós precisamos refinar mais é exatamente esse, é quantificar essas taxas de reposição da fração mineral, digamos assim, de ponto. Luís, não sei se era mais ou menos isso.
Okay, Sergio, thank you very much. I just realized now that I should have speaking in English and not in Portuguese, sorry. But yes, I think it's quite important, the job that you're doing, because particularly with the pressure that we have with the use of biomass for different purposes, it is essential that we keep a very strong effort in trying to keep our soil sustainability, the soil environment in good conditions to save soil for the future, and that's something that it's crucial, and we should pay definitively a very high attention on this aspect. Thank you very much. Sorry, Andrea, I switched to English. I realized that probably we could continue in English. I don't know. Normally, when we see the audience, if we have only Portuguese, then we skip to Portuguese. But now I have no clue on who is listening. So please, thank you very much.
Okay. About the floration, we didn't have any information pre-fire, so we don't account with that information. But as we know, in canopy, there are accumulation of different years of capsules with different years. So after the October fire, probably the capsules from 2017 probably have had seeds, viable seeds. So probably they will contribute to the higher ceilings that I found. But it's interesting that you asked that, because it's my I'm working on that. I'm doing a phenological study of eucalyptus, and we will done germination trials to verify if in October there will be more seeds viable than in June. So I'm happy that you asked for, because I'm curious too about that issue.
Okay, thank you very much. I understand it's not the right moment now, but we have lots of data on this. But if in case you need, you'll be helped. It will be a pleasure to share with you some of the data that you have on our experience. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Antonio, I forgot to ask you one thing, is about the pre-use of the different sites where you made the establishment. If they were a reforestation because you were breaking the stump, so I assume it's a reforestation. But if they were all pine, eucalyptus, or any other type of forest stands, because the litter might be interesting to understand how it could affect the survival of the seedlings. Sorry, the floor is yours. Sorry, Antonio. Did you understand what I've asked for? I don't know if it's. Sorry, Antonio, we cannot. I don't know if it's only me or everybody.
Yeah.
No?
We don't listen, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm starting to apologize for the micro, for my English, and for internet problems. That is probably also. So, trying to answer the questions, may I start to say that the main objective of this project was to create data to the project. Okay, to take some movies, some photos, some working times to the project, because the project is not a scientific project; it is an operational group, and the main goal is to create information to the forest owners, mainly the ones that have small scale properties, less than 3,000 square meters. In this moment in Portugal, they don't have any clue about what are the right techniques to use in the installation of eucalyptus. They can get some information from the industry and some programs that the industry create as Eucalyptus and programs like that. But if I have for instance, 3,000 square meters land, I can't use the same techniques that the industry use in their land. So we thought that this information was necessary to the Portuguese forest owners. So it's probably that and I believe that the data present here can be questioned, since they probably do not have all the conceptual strength of the tests for pure academic research. Okay, but we try to do the test as a real land. So if we to present results from lands with 1,000 square meters, we try to do it with 1,000 square meters. And the border problems that you question, we installed 3 lines, and we only use one line data, the center one, to solve the problems of the border with the other reality. These areas are homogeneous, I think, and so the data could be some good, can produce some good results to the main goal of the test. For instance, the problem with the vegetation that you refer, it is a real one problem, and we can see in the trial number that called Andorinha, that the test was made with the excavator with a blade. You aren't listening?
Yeah, I'm listening. Yes.
Nós estamos a ouvir.
Imagino que sim. Sim? Sim, ok. And the problem is that when we dig between the stems, the whole stems, all the area around this 1 square meter maintains the whole vegetation. And this is a factor that could impact negatively with the new eucalyptus plant, because they compete with the new plant for water and soil nutrients and all the other things that we well know. So it is a problem, but we are trying to understand what can we do in these small land properties. So it is impossible to take a bulldozer with a land with 2,000 square meters. It is not possible, and if it was possible, it was too expensive to do it. So we have to do like this, like the test. I don't know if I answer all the questions. I tried.
No, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was very good. And I thank you, the three of you, for your clear presentations and availability. And let's keep in touch then. Thank you very much. And we should pass the word to the organizer. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.